Hiya, pals! Welcome to the Mouse Bytes podcast! Here we go!
Hello and welcome to Mouse Bytes, the show all about Disney video games, past and present. This is episode 27. I'm your host, Clay, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Jeph. How's it going, Jeph?
It's going good. How about yourself?
Awesome. I'm doing great. I am, things are going well.
Glad to hear that.
Slowly the snow is melting a little bit here, and so
Nice.
some kind of resemblance. Next week is spring break, but it's not going to look or feel anything like spring here by next week. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, we had a weird week last week where it was like 45 one day, then snowed the next day, and then like 45 or 50 the next day, and then snowed again on Friday. It was crazy.
It's thinking nuts, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us if you're listening. Sorry, it's been a little while. We've been, I don't know if we've been lacking in motivation or what it is, but there's been a little bit of a lull here. Also, just this episode kind of making it happen. It took a few weeks on our end to kind of get things in line in order for us to do this, because this episode is a little bit different in the fact that we're kind of stepping out of our normal, what am I trying to say? Where we normally are at, and so we're kind of going out of our comfort zone and looking at a PC game today. We haven't done that yet here on the show, so this is a first, but it's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. So this week we are taking a look at Disney's Villain's Revenge. All right, so getting right into this game, we're just going to start off with the good old question of what the heck is this game? Jeph, do you think you could take a stab at maybe somebody who's not familiar with this game and just maybe a very brief overview of what it is, and then maybe you could go into some information about it as well?
Yeah, so my gathering of what this game is, and the best way to describe it, is a kind of point-and-click adventure, not unlike maybe the Mickey one we did recently, but with a little more interesting-looking 3D pre-rendered visuals mixed with old-fashioned Disney hand animation, and a little bit of some audio puzzles as well.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of an anomaly, because when you think point-and-click adventure, you think of like Spy Fox or Monkey Island or something where it's a little more static. Right, and this is more like mini games kind of incorporated in with some point and click stuff. I don't know, but yeah, a bunch of little mini games kind of all wrapped into one thing, I would say as well. So, yeah. All right. So who made this game, Jeph? Give me some information about this thing.
Alrighty, so it was developed by Disney Interactive back when they actually made the games themselves. It was released way back 20 years ago, almost in September 28th of 1999. Didn't come to PC, or didn't come to consoles, only came to PC and Mac.
Yes.
It's noted here that the concept was credited to Roger Holzberg. I didn't know who he was, looked him up a little bit. He was a vice president and creative director at Disney for few years back in the 90s. He wanted to basically bring the older Disney animated movies into prominence with the video game age. They'd seen some success just a few years earlier, honestly, with the Walt Disney Classics collection on VHS, which is weird to think that was still relatively new for comparative sake. And so he kind of spearheaded this project. He had also worked on like Virtual Magic Kingdom Online and Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters Online, so he's kind of a digital entertainment specialist for the Disney Parks and Imagineering division. So it's kind of cool that he got this project out.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about this later, but most of the villains in this game make sense. There's one that doesn't really make much sense. But after reading that this was kind of purposely done in such a way that they were trying to kind of promote the pre-1970s animated films, makes a little bit more sense to me. Because I feel like one of them just doesn't really fit with the other villains, and so. But I thought that was interesting when I read up that it was kind of them trying to harken back to the older villains and stuff. So I gave it a little slack once I had read that. Another thing I noted, which I guess this could have gone maybe in the audio section, but something right off the bat that I found interesting, and I don't have the exact wordage pulled up, but when you first boot up the game, it basically wants you to verify that your left speaker is on your left and your right speaker is on your right, and later on in the game you realize why that is. But I don't know, I just thought that was really cool that they wanted to make sure that you had your, I don't know, I call it stereo. I don't know if that's necessarily stereo, but yeah, and so that is played out in this game, and so I thought that was really cool, and it was something you don't really see in video games, but when I got on the PC with it, I was like, oh, that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. There's a few iPhone games nowadays that will do that, and they say best used with headphones for similar reason. And then more recently on console, there's a game called Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice that actually recommends you play with headphones in stereo.
Huh.
But other than that, you're right. It's not super common on console gaming.
I mean, because even like Ocarina of Time, which uses kind of audio direction as a gameplay mechanic at times. There's never really any like, hey, are your speakers hooked up correctly? You just make sure you figure it out. But I don't know. So I just thought that was kind of cool. Something I thought was kind of, I don't know if it was revolutionary for the time, probably not. But I just thought it was kind of a neat little thing that they made sure you had ready to go at the beginning. So I figured I'd note it at the top. So
totally.
That being said, next section we're going to hit on real quickly is our history with this game. Any nostalgia we have, any history. Jeph, I'll let you go first, and then I'll follow.
Yeah, so I have none with this game, to the point that I actually was not able to even get it to run for this episode. So I just wanted to note that kind of here towards the top of the show, that everything I'm going to comment on and analyze will be from reading about it and watching some critiques, but I'm kind of here more as a color commentary to your more expertise. If you want to jump into that segue with your history.
Sure. And might I add, you bring such a colorful commentary that I welcome it all the time. No, I appreciate you humoring me and doing this one. I do have some history with Disney PC games, not as much as I wish I had, but for whatever reason, I very briefly played this game back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and apparently played enough of it, even in a short time, that it left a lasting memory on me, to the point that when we were looking at PC games to do, I was like, dude, I remember this one game. I didn't even own it. It was my cousin who had it, and he let me play a brief portion of the game. Nice. And I was like, this would be a really cool one to do, and I'm a big fan of villains. Anytime I go to the Disney parks and stuff, I'm always looking for like villain pins, and I just like when Disney does on occasion kind of bring those into the light, and so it already kind of naturally was something that I thought was unique. And so instead of just jumping into like the Lion King storybook, I thought, let's if we're gonna do a PC game, let's try to do something maybe a little more unique. And the more I played it, and when I was reviewing it and stuff, I was like, I think we picked a good one, because there is some interesting stuff to talk about with this game. So that being said, back when I was a kid, played it very briefly at my cousin's house, just enough to remember that there was a really cool sword fight, and that was all I remembered.
Nice.
So that being said, when I suggested to Jeph that we potentially cover this game, I kind of tasked him with finding a way for us to play it, because in my head, I'm a Mac guy, and even though this came out on Mac, pretty much in my head, I was like, there's no way it's going to run on my Mac. But I had also installed Boot Camp, which allowed me to play, have Windows 10 on the in the background of my computer or whatever. Anyway, one day I just randomly had a old, no, actually it was a Lion King PC game sitting here, and I just plugged it in just to see what would happen. And it was like, hey, do you want to install this? And then I could play it. And I was like, wait, you can just play old 90s games on Windows? And I just assumed that eventually you couldn't do that anymore, and you had to like install like, some kind of emulator and all this stuff. So really, yeah, pretty much quickly I was like, whoa, I could probably just buy this Villains game and get it going. So I went on eBay and bought one for, I don't know, $12 or something. Came with 2 discs because this is a 2-disc game, and came with the jewel case and the instruction manual, everything, all pretty much included, and plugged it in, put the CD in, and installed and booted right up, and I was able to play through the entire game and beat the whole game, and I had a decent time with it, had a good time, and I was pretty excited that I can play old, like, 90s, PC games. So I was pretty stoked.
Pretty rad.
Yeah. So maybe we'll have to do some more of these potentially in the future. I've got a few more, and
I'm sure I can figure out how to get them to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have any others,
history.
but I never played any of the other like interactive ones or really any of the other PC games. So I'd be down if we can get them to work to jump into more of those. Be kind of cool.
All right. Well, the ball's in your court, sir, because
all right.
I'm pretty confident in my abilities now. all that hacking I had to do to get this running. But
I need to go back to just the vanilla Windows 10.
Yeah, you're such a hacker yourself. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we return, we will jump into some gameplay discussion. So stay tuned. And we're back. So to start off our gameplay discussion, we are going to be hitting on some visuals. Now, Jeph, before we jump into the visuals here, basically there are 2 parts to this game visually that I think are probably the most prevalent to talk about, and that would be basically the split up between the full motion video stuff, the 3D kind of stuff, and then more of the I guess you could call it the the more traditional animation stuff. Mm-hmm. So Jeph, I'm going to allow you, or offer to you, to pick one of the 2 to talk about, and then I will take the other one. So I will leave it in your hands as to which you would like to talk. I mean, obviously you can give feedback on both, but you take one and I'll take the other on our thoughts, and we can converse as such.
Okay. I will take the kind of 3D rendered visuals.
Cool.
So it's an interesting thing because, if you really think about the timing of when this came out, pre-rendered visuals had been around 5 years since Donkey Kong Country. 3D movie or rendered movies had only been around 4 years since Toy Story. And so the reason I mention that is that the pre-rendered visuals kind of pose a really weird juxtaposition. They kind of contrast the hand-drawn animation. In weird ways, they have like darker shadows and kind of just that 90s textured look where they hadn't quite perfected materials. So they all kind of look like plastic, I guess. Not supernatural looking, like things that are supposed to be leather or metal kind of all look similar. Right now I'm kind of looking at the book and the table that Jiminy's on. But other stuff, like there's a scene where I feel like it's like the evil queen from Snow White has like a trap door that's like in 3D, but she's hand-drawn and it just kind of looks weird and unnatural. And there's a few other times where hand-drawn stuff is there's a lot of times hand-drawn stuff is put over top of these kind of 3D moving backgrounds, or even just 3D rendered, like static 2D images that are rendered in 3D. Right. And it just sort of looks different. I don't know. Did you want to go ahead and comment on that or jump into the 2D?
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of confused with how I set this up. But yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think visually this is a really strong point of this game. In fact, as I was playing through it, I was kind of, nowadays it looks a little rough, but I was kind of blown away at how it looked, even knowing what things look like now and stuff. I was actually really impressed, mostly just in the locations. Pretty much every world you visit in this game, or every story, they have their own kind of these big open areas or what have you that are kind of the main basis for the game. And I don't know, I just thought those were really cool, and I thought they were really well done. And so I was actually kind of blown away by it. And so I think it was definitely one of the strongest points of the game.
Okay.
That being said, the other part, which is the traditional animation, where they tried to recreate some of these beloved characters that we've all known and loved. Oh my gosh, they did such a bad job at this.
I noticed a few in some of the videos I watched.
And I watched some people review this game, and they're like, the traditional animation stuff looks really good. And I'm like, what are you talking about? If you've seen the blue fairy princess lady from Pinocchio in this game, oh my gosh, she looks so bad.
Yep.
So bad.
Yeah, that one was a standout of the awfulness. Jiminy was not terrible.
No, Jiminy wasn't too bad.
Which is good because
Hook wasn't. yeah, right. Hook wasn't too bad. Some of the villains looked okay, and some of them didn't.
It definitely the only other game I can really think of right off the top of my head that does similar things to this is the those Zelda CDI games.
Yeah, totally.
And those had really, really bad animation. So this looks better than that. I guess there's other ones. There's I can't think of it. It has the knight, and it's kind of comedic. But Dragon's Lair. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Dragon's Lair
okay,
looks
yes.
great. Plays similar, or doesn't play. Has full motion video animation. Looks decent. But the Zelda CDI ones are an example of it done worse. Dragon's Lair might be an example of the animation done a little better, but wasn't based off of characters that are beloved.
Right, and I get it. Just short of having Disney do it themselves, you're gonna struggle to get even, to make it look the same. And so I wasn't necessarily expecting the same, but I don't know. It's already tough to do like full motion video and with like 3D rendered stuff, and then to add 2D stuff, it was already kind of difficult to stomach at times, and sometimes they interact with each other, and it just the pop out looked kind of weird. So I struggled with that. Definitely one of the lower points, one of the things I wasn't as big of a fan of. But as I was reading through this, I found a thing online here that kind of mentions how a lot of the visuals were done with this. It mentions that the game incorporates full motion video via the Dream Factory engine, which was licensed from Bill Appleton. I'll come back to that. Traditional animation was outsourced to Karen Johnson Productions, and ink and paint was conducted by Virtual Magic. So, so I started kind of looking into some of these things, and trying to figure out kind of if there was anything interesting with these. I couldn't find the Dream Factory engine. I looked into and found it was used in a few other games, but it was mostly used from this Japanese studio, and I didn't really even recognize any of the games. This Bill Appleton guy, on the other hand, seems a little more interesting. He was an American entrepreneur guy. Basically, best-selling. He worked on a bunch of CD-ROM games and things, Math Quest and Reading Quest, but Villain's Revenge seems to be the only one in here that appears to be of Disney origin. So, I thought that was interesting. I looked into this Karen Johnson Productions, which just sounds like a real stand-up place. And I don't know, there's not a whole lot of information about them. I did find a video reel from one of the guys that worked for Karen Johnson Productions from 1995 to 2003. And he's got a couple things on here. One of them's like a Barbie game. One of them is Disney's Magic Artist Deluxe, which I assume is some kind of art thing for the PC. And then he also has, like, right at the beginning of his reel, he has a Mickey Mouse short little bit with him, and he's got his Sorcerer's Apprentice outfit on, which I thought was interesting. I'm like, I don't know what game this is from. Yeah. And so in his little description here, he's talking about He said he was lucky enough to animate 40 frames of Mickey Mouse for Disney Interactive's Villains Night Out.
Oh.
Approved by Disney, but unfortunately cut from the game intro. Which, after looking into it, there's no such thing as Villains Night Out. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that he meant Disney Interactive's Villains Revenge, which maybe at one point was named Villains Night Out. I don't know.
Sounds pretty plausible based on how it plays out.
Yeah. And so I don't know. So there's some potential things right there. It might have had an earlier title. This quick shot they have of Mickey Mouse doesn't really look like it fits into anything in the game, so I'm not really sure what purpose it served and everything, but I don't know, I just thought it was kind of interesting regardless. So, and then I didn't look at all into what did I say, Virtual Magic, I don't even know what that is. Some kind of animation company it looks like, so that did painting stuff. Anyway, so that was really all I had on it. I think the 3D stuff looked great, and I thought the 2D stuff looked really rough. Jeph, did you have any other additional thoughts? I didn't mean to step all over there, and just curious what your thoughts
Oh,
were.
no, you're good. The last thing for I guess all the animation, both the 3D moving animation and the 2D animation, is that it's very low frame rate. I don't know if it's like 12 frames or if it's less than that, maybe 10. So it's a little choppy, and then, not uncommon at the time to save animation frames or disk space to just like repeat them. I just caught one as I was scrubbing through a video just now of the evil queen dressed as the old hag in like a broken mirror reflection, and it just replayed the same 3 frames back and forth for like a while. It looked really bad. Makes it look really cheap. And I feel like that was pretty common for most CD-ROM animation at the time. I don't know if that was a limit of sort of high resolution video playback, like what the limitation was, if it was storage space or RAM or who knows, but it's not uncommon for similar games, but just something I noticed. Cheapens the look a little bit.
It does. So anyways, next section here is audio. I don't have too terribly much to say on this one. I'll just go ahead and say that I thought the music was good in this game. I didn't really find it overly too frustrating or annoying, and I thought it kind of fit its purpose well. There's a couple parts that were actually kind of dark in nature with the music, which I thought fit the whole villain thing really well, and so I was overall I thought it fit well for the source material and stuff, and so I thought they did a good job with it. For the most part, I think they tried to make the music match kind of the movie that you're in, and so I thought that they did a good job with that. I don't know, what do you think about the music?
I didn't get to really sample too much of it. It was mostly scrubbing through stuff and having somebody like narrate over it, so I can't really make a critique on it, but it seemed fitting, so I'll trust your review of that.
Fair enough. The voice acting is okay. I should know better, but I don't really consider myself a purist with voice acting to the point that I can be like, oh my gosh, that's not the original Alice voice, and so it's like, I know that I think when we were doing movie Bytes, we were talking about this, but there's a guy that did the voice for Jiminy Cricket for a very long time. Not the original guy, but the guy that kind of took it over after. And I don't think he's doing it anymore, but had done it for a long time. Anyway, I think that he does a good job with Jiminy Cricket, and I'm pretty sure it was the original. I don't know, maybe you could look at the voice acting list, and I think it's in the credits. But like people that did Hook's voice, I don't know if that was the original voice actor or not, but it convinced me that it was, it sounded authentic. So I don't know. That being said, I can't remember anything that really stood out that I was like, ooh, that just doesn't fit. But obviously they did. I don't know. These movies are so old that I doubt most of these are original voice actors to the characters and stuff. But
just looking that one up real quick, the Captain Hook guy, the guy who did it for this and has been doing it since 1983. So
okay,
obviously not the original, but consistent with what Disney's been putting out for almost 40 years.
Which is totally fine with me. Like, obviously,
yeah.
the original voice actors are probably not really an option. So, but it wasn't like they just grabbed some yahoos to do it this one time.
Right.
It's like they've tried to be consistent with their voice actors, and
exactly.
so I appreciate that.
Same.
And I thought that there was only a couple times where, and we get that a lot on this show, where you get these prompts to do things. And they just keep saying it over and over, like that Pixar game that we covered. It was just like,
yeah.
And so I think in the Alice in Wonderland game, you go through this maze and you have to click on these smoke things so they don't hit you in the face. And every time you see one, I think it's Alice or it's the bunny, somebody is like, don't let those smoke clouds get you, and like every time, and there's like so many of them. So there was a couple times where it was like the voice prompts were a little much, but really other than like that one specifically, I can't think of any off the top of my head. So
okay,
in hindsight, it probably wasn't too bad. So
fair enough.
Nobody listens to this show to know about the audio of this game. So let's get into what I think is probably the most interesting part of this game, and that is the story.
Yeah.
I really like the story in this game, and I think it's, like I said, one of its strong points. I'm not going to, there's like a much longer version of the story, but I have a very short and sweet, concise version that comes in the manual. I'll just read very quickly. Prepare to experience one of the most extraordinary Disney adventures of all time. With Jiminy Cricket as your guide, you must journey into 4 of Disney's most beloved stories to restore the happy endings before the villains take over forever. The fate of Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Dumbo, and Snow White rests in your hands. Can you defeat the Disney villains? And so, yeah, basically at the beginning of the game, Jiminy, for some reason, decides to pull out all the end pages of these stories. And
of course he does.
Right, because he wants you to figure out if you can match them up, with the original story. But then while he's doing that, this magic book comes to life, and all of the villains decide, now that there is no ending to their story, that they can basically change the ending. And so they kind of hijack the stories and become successful. And so then you, the player, have to go into these stories and reclaim, the happy ending, I guess. So the reason I think this is so cool is because you go into, I think it was 4 different stories, and basically you get to see these quote unquote bad endings, some with stronger ones than others. And it's cool because you kind of go into this alternate reality where things didn't work out good, for the, for the characters.
Like Epic Mickey.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're right. And, I don't know. I thought it was a really neat idea. Whether or not they actually pulled it off, probably not, but it's still a kind of a unique thing, and so I liked that about it. Certain parts of the storyline were just kind of weird, or didn't make sense to me, and I don't know, maybe you can make sense of this one, Jeph, but when you go into Peter Pan's story, basically Peter Pan and Hook are still battling, but Peter Pan is old. He has like a beard.
Oh.
But I thought that you don't age in Neverland, so I'm confused why he's old.
Yeah, the only real explanation could be that Peter returned to the real world and got stuck there. Maybe Hook sealed the second star to the right. I really don't know. And then let him in to come fight him as an old man. I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and they didn't explain it well. So that one I was kind of like,
he looks awful.
Yeah, and old Pan just doesn't look good.
Yeah.
I was like, So that was kind of rough. Let's see. In Snow White eats the apple, and then she is permanently like hidden away. And then the wicked old witch ends up putting all of the dwarves to sleep, or has captured them and is going to.
Bummer. So
that was one of the alternate endings. The Dumbo one is that Dumbo just continually has to be made the butt joke of the clowns, and so he's constantly in that building where he's dressed up like a baby and gets knocked off and he never, I guess, flies or whatever. And then the best one, and kind of really odd, is the Alice in Wonderland kind of bad ending. Basically, Alice gets her head chopped off.
Right.
Like you
Rated
show up
E for everyone.
Yeah, she's just standing there with no head, and she's like, "I can't find my head," and you have to go find her head. Like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
like okay. I mean, I get it. Off with your head. Like,
yeah, Queen of Hearts is the villain. It makes sense, but that's
Yeah.
dark. The
Yeah.
fact that she's a human child, and that they made it so that she can just survive in Neverland without a head.
Mhm.
Which, I mean, the Cheshire Cat does that, but he's a Cheshire Cat. He's not a human child from the real
Right.
world. So,
Right.
yeah.
So
Interesting choice there.
yeah, it's kind of weird. But basically, you just go through all four, and as you beat them, they, you know. Oh, and I meant to mention the villain from Dumbo is obviously
Gonna ask you about that.
is the ringleader, and a lot of
Oh.
people are not a fan of that, and
No.
I totally can agree. And like I said, I get earlier that they're trying to, you know, make callbacks to these older movies, but a lot of people argue whether or not that guy's even considered a villain. I don't know if I would.
I wouldn't say he was.
I think the only villainous thing he did was gouge the pay of the clowns or something.
Yeah, I mean, he whips the elephants or whatever and makes
That's
them
true. He is a
work
little
an
mean to the mom.
unruly, you know, and
And he locks up the mom when she gets
Yeah.
mad.
but it's more just him doing it. It's not like he's malicious. He's just trying to entertain the crowd.
Right.
It's a little different. I mean, I guess it doesn't make it any better, but it's still there's not villainous intent. There's no him being jealous of looks or you know, wanting to rule the entire Neverland or rule the entire Wonderland. It's just he wants to entertain people at the
Right.
expense of elephants.
And I don't know. I feel like there's better options for
Yeah.
villains that they could have pulled from and still been kind of, you know, older, I guess. Because they went all the way. Alice in Wonderland was 1951. Peter Pan was 53.
Mhm.
I mean, they could have. I'm trying to think what was the other one I had in my head.
I mean, Cruella
Sleeping
DeVille in the 101 Dalmatians would have been.
Cruella
good
would be great.
option.
Sleeping Beauty had Maleficent, who is
Yeah.
now like one of the most popular villains.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just 1967 Shere Khan. I mean, you could have.
Yeah.
There's I don't know. There's just a
True
lot better
villains
options
that they could have used.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah,
Very
or
weird.
or the Chernabog from Fantasia. That would have been my favorite.
You are a spirit trying to reach heaven. You must evade Chernabog.
Yes, and survive till morning. So that part was a little bit, I don't know, strange and weak.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do? So I think that about covers the story. Jeff, am I missing anything out?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't know that much anyway, but yeah, from what I've gathered, no.
Here's my thought. If I would have been in charge of this game, I would have done it differently. Granted, I am partial to the whole point and click adventure games, so I would have kept it very traditional point and click, and
Yeah.
I would have had story. I would have done the whole game where you actually explore these alternate storylines, and you have to, yes, beat the villain eventually, but like I want to see what it's like, you know, in Neverland now that, you know, Hook's in charge or something.
Totally.
Or I want to see what, you know, what it's like for Alice, you know, now that, I don't know, the Queen's, I don't know. I think that I was very intrigued by these like alternate realities, but then you didn't really do a whole lot in them, and I felt like they just kind of scratched the surface. So I don't know if that could have been like a good sequel or what, but it was just like I wanted more story. I wanted more. I just felt like they gave a very simple premise to each one, and then you were just like thrown into a mini game, and it was just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And maybe that's just like the nerd in me being like, well, what's happening in this universe? I want to know. But
Yeah, I mean, it's not unreasonable to expect that. I'm on the same page.
yeah. And this is a pretty short game, I think, overall, I would say. I mean, there's a bunch of things that you can do post-game after you beat the main kind of storyline. But I don't know. I think I was just looking for a little more meat, and I only got, you know, kind of some mini games. So I was a little bummed. I feel like they had a good potential for the story that they could have taken further. But that being said, next up is gameplay and difficulty. There are 3 difficulty settings when you start the game. I think it's just easy, normal, and hard. I did normal this time. Normally I do easy, but sometimes with these kinds of games, if you do the easy mode, you don't get the full experience, so I didn't want to run into that. So I just decided to keep it on that. And even then, I never really struggled. There is like a health bar. There were a couple times that my health got a little bit low, and I think the final battle, it was getting pretty dicey. I think I had like 1 health left, but never died. So I don't even know what happens when you do that. But overall, not a terribly difficult game on normal. I assume on hard, you probably just have less health, and it would probably not be much more difficult. But I don't know. I didn't test it.
Okay.
I guess the only thing to talk about really with the gameplay, like I said, each villain, each area has their own mini game that you play. So real quickly, I'll just kind of briefly describe those real quick. My favorite and the best one, in my opinion, is the sword fight that you have with Captain Hook, which is done in I think all of these are done in first person, but you basically hold a jousting sword type thing, and you are fighting against Captain Hook, and he swings in like 3 different directions, maybe 4, left, right, center, and up. And so you just move the mouse to the different area that he's about to swing to, and you block them, and then you click the mouse and you kind of lunge your sword at him, and it backs him up, and you eventually knock him off. Then you go to a different part of his ship, and you eventually, like, some of his pirate crew come out, and you have to kind of fight them. And I don't know, as a kid it was super cool. When I played it as an adult, it wasn't as cool, but I still had a good time with it, mostly probably just because I have good memories with it. But I don't know, this is kind of a fun thing as a kid. Like, who doesn't want to fight swords against Captain Hook?
Totally.
So that's probably my favorite one. You can play these in any order, which I forgot to mention, but I thought that was kind of interesting. There's no forced order in which to do these. Alice in Wonderland, you are going through this maze in the Queen of Hearts garden to try to find Alice's head. And so this is the game we were talking about, where you have to use your speakers to hear which direction her voice is coming from. And so you might hear it coming out of your left speaker. So then you turn your head, turn your view, and then you'll hear it coming through both speakers, and then head that way. And so it's a cool idea. I was excited to play it. Like, it was there. The whole maze itself just took way too long, and so the whole thing just drew out really long, and it was like, after a while I was like, oh my gosh. And then you finally find her head, and then you got to turn around and get out of the maze, which you follow the white rabbit to do that. And so you just, wherever he goes, you just follow. And then, like I said earlier, you click on these little smoke clouds as you run through, and you don't run into them so you don't get hurt, basically. And so, I don't know. That one probably came the closest to like actually venturing through the areas that I wanted to explore more. But even that, didn't really count, I guess.
Right. Because the most gameplay there is really just click on a thing before your camera gets to it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because like you said, like, I think the whole point of wanting to explore these areas, at least for me and probably for you, is, like the old interactive storybooks where you're on a scene and you can click every little thing, and each thing might give you a little bit of exposition or a little funny reaction, or you can just sort of paint the picture in your mind of what's happened. So yeah, it's too bad that they didn't do that.
So that one felt way too long, and the next one was way too short, and that was Dumbo. You're at the circus, and Dumbo is about to jump off, dressed as the baby, and the clowns are all down below. And so basically you have to set up this, mousetrap style chain of events that happen with the clowns, and you have to move them and adjust them so that when you set things off into motion, the clowns basically cause havoc, and then Dumbo is able to fly away. Even not even knowing what I was doing, I think I set everything up and finished it in like less than 2 minutes.
Wow.
Just because you have to wait for it to finish playing out before you can make adjustments. Otherwise, I probably would have done it quicker.
Yeah.
and then it's over. And so I was like, okay, it was a cool idea. Like, you got to move this one so that when he falls on the ball bounces him over here and the lion eats him or whatever. And it was, I felt like there needed to be like 2 or 3 more different scenarios that were ideally would be more difficult, and there weren't. It was very simple. So I don't know. Maybe on the higher difficulty it would be a little more difficult. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But it had potential, just was way too easy.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun puzzle game. Like,
yeah, it could be really cool.
Like they made an entire game about that with different Disney movies would be cool.
Yeah, I would totally be into that. Then finally is Snow White, and in this one you're on a timer, and the evil wicked witch lady queen is going down to the dungeon to poison the 7 dwarfs. So you basically have to get it done before she poisons all of them. You can let her poison some, I guess.
6 out of 7 ain't bad.
Yeah. And so she has all these potions, and she has like a potion book. And so you look at the book, and you have to make different things in order to eventually make True Love's first kiss so that you can wake Snow White up. But you need certain ingredients to make the final potion to wake her up, but you have to make those ingredients first. So you're using all these different things and putting them into a cauldron or whatever. It was a cool game, actually. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I actually had to think for a minute. I kind of cheated because I used my phone and I took a picture of all the recipes.
Oh, nice.
Instead of having to go like back and forth.
Yeah.
Maybe not a luxury you would have in 1999, but
No.
I took advantage and just kind of sped up the process a little bit. But it was an okay game. It was okay fun. So,
Okay.
So those are basically the 4 main levels. After that, you beat the game. Everybody's happy ever after. And then you go back to the bedroom, which is kind of the main hub of the game. And at that point, then I think the Blue Fairy, she gives you 4 additional mini games that you can play. All of which I just found like zero interest in. One of them's called Clown Fever, where this clown from Dumbo, he basically wants to be a dance machine, and so
no, thank you.
You like play a different music, like these different style of music, and then you can either freestyle or you can match a move. I don't know. I couldn't figure out how to do it.
It's terrifying. If anyone wants to look this up, or if you have it on for anyone on YouTube,
take a
Holy
look.
Cow.
I just like the song categories is like rap, disco,
techno.
Yeah. I'm like, I want to hear what they think techno sounds like, and so I played it, and I was like, yeah. Maybe the most. I guess there's 2 here that are kind of interesting. One is called Pirate Block, which is a Peter Pan minigame, which is basically like a board game of sorts. I think it's modeled off a different board game. I can't remember what it's called, but not one I ever played. So I was too lazy to like understand the rules and figure it out. But basically, you play coins and you try to trap the other person. The interesting thing about this one,
like Reversey.
It might be that might be what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
You can actually play, I think, up to 4 players on this, so you could actually have 4 people playing on this computer game at once. So I guess that was kind of neat that it was multiplayer.
Cool.
The next one is 7 Dwarves Gold Rush, which is basically a minigame where you play with the 7 dwarves and you're trying to get to the bottom of this mine. And so you have to choose which dwarves to send out to different parts because they all have different abilities. I could not figure this one out, and I didn't want to spend like a lot of time with it at that point, and so I didn't go too far. But a lot of people said that it was really cool that the different dwarves have different abilities. So I don't know. It was kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah.
And then the 4th one is a Alice in Wonderland one, which is a maze type game where you have 2 halves of a maze, and you're trying to kind of move this little like caterpillar bug guy through, and both halves of the maze can be rotated to different ones, and so you can't just make a straight shot to the end. You kind of have to go back it up and down to each half and change it, and that one was pretty self-explanatory and played fine, but didn't really find a whole lot of meat in those, and especially since they lacked story, and I had just spend a couple hours beating the game. I was kind of not too interested in messing with them for very long, but it's neat they're there. Maybe would have added some, longevity to, kids back in the day playing it. So,
Totally.
so that is kind of the game in a nutshell. Jeph, did I miss anything that you wanted to hit on as far as gameplay and levels and everything?
No, I think you pretty much covered everything that I saw. So, yeah.
All right. Well, then let's go ahead and give our final thoughts, and we'll get out of here. Jeph, you want to start us off with your final thoughts?
Yeah. So this looks like it was a well-produced little game, and I can see why you liked it as a kid. I would have probably wanted to have it. I wasn't much of a PC gamer until like late high school or college, so I would have missed this either way. But yeah, it's like, given the technology limitations, I can understand some of the things, and then, like you said, some of the design choices I wish they would have done a little more story style, a little more adventure book. But for what it is, for what the package is, I think it's a fun little Disney point-and-click adventure game, and I would like to get it to run and work and be able to play through it myself.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
yeah, anything else? Sorry.
No, I was going to say, but with that, I would rather hear what your thoughts are, since you've actually have the nostalgia and you have played it as an adult. So curious to hear how it compared and contrasted.
I don't know. It's funny because I think most of my nostalgia is based around probably the best part of the game. At least for a kid, sword fighting is pretty awesome. But I don't know. I'm happy this game exists. It seems like, looking it up online and stuff, there's actually quite a few people that look back on it fondly. There was actually more reviews on YouTube about this game than I thought there would be, which was surprising.
I was surprised.
Yeah, and I don't know. A lot of Disney, and I'm not a pro on this by any means, but a lot of Disney PC games are like art games or mini games, or just kind of following the storyline with like storybook kind of things. So I thought this one was a little more unique and wasn't just like 101 Dalmatians storybook, and so for that reason I like it. I appreciate that Disney Interactive tried to do something different. I'm even down with the fact that they were trying to do a callback to some of the older Disney stuff that maybe kids at this time weren't really as interested in, and so they were trying to kind of bring some more familiarity and popularity with some of the older villains, and so I think that's cool, even if they picked one that was kind of lame. Yeah, and then I don't know, usually with like Disney games where they kind of go away from the main movie storylines, usually the plot is super weak, and then maybe the gameplay kind of is the redeeming quality. But I feel like the storyline in this is the redeeming quality, despite some of the cheesy things like Jiminy ripping pages out of a book or whatever.
Right.
But I think it had high potential, and I know I already hit on this a bunch, but high potential with the story, and probably fell short in a lot of the areas, but it's still a cool thing. And I think visually the atmosphere they created in these areas is actually top notch, and I really like it. Oh man, I forgot to talk about the final battle, but basically you like you just have this final battle with all four of them, and you control this thing in front of your face that you block cannon fire and enemy fire with, and you try to bounce them back and hit the bad guys, and they're like really impossible to aim because it's like playing any kind of bouncy puzzle game where you have to bounce the thing back, and then eventually you hit them enough and they all die and you win, I guess. So anyway, there's the ending for you.
Perfect.
The final battle was kind of lackluster, so I guess that's a negative, but the 2D animation was just awful, and just really unfortunate, but sometimes acceptable in other areas. The mini games themselves were okay. Probably if I was a kid, maybe I would have enjoyed them more, but as an adult, just didn't really work for me as well. Some were stronger than others. So I don't really know where I sit with this game, dude. Like I don't know.
It's tough.
It's got some pros. It's got plenty of cons. So I don't know. Maybe if you're a fan of old, like 90s games and 90s PC games, you would enjoy this. If you like villains, I would say it's worth checking out just for that reason. Kind of getting that whole atmosphere and stuff, I think is kind of fun to experience. Other than that, probably good to steer clear. I think this is a cool game. I wish they'd made more of these games, like a sequel or, something where they could continue this kind of idea. Because Disney has so many good villains that they could pull from to be making games about. And so it's a bummer there isn't more stuff like this where they kind of go off and kind of try to do things a little more experimental. But I don't know, maybe that's just not Disney, So
yeah.
So take that for what it is. I don't know if I'm recommending it or not. I kind of am. I kind of not. So
you recommend it, but with a qualifier.
Yes, we'll say that.
A heavy
like
qualifier.
That. Right.
Yep.
Right.
Perfect.
I don't know. In the future, I'd like to cover some more PC games on here. I don't have a ton of nostalgia with a bunch of other ones, but I still think it'd be kind of fun to play some more. So
Definitely.
I know we already talked about that earlier, but if Jeph can get him running, we'll do some more because I want to get him playing these as well and stuff. But I appreciate you letting me ramble on about this one, Jeph. So.
No problem.
Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us this week. Please give us a follow on our Twitter account at mouse_bytes. That's BYTES. You can also go to the nintendovillage.com. Blah. From there, you can find links to all of our episodes. We have 26 other episodes, as well as some other great shows, reviews, and other content on the website. Those are a bunch of my buddies doing different Nintendo type things. So they're nice enough to let us be on their website and talk about PC games sometimes. But mostly Nintendo over there. Guys, also you can check out our episodes on the Nintendo Village YouTube page, where if you want to see some of that sweet gameplay footage, hopefully it'll look okay this week with the PC game, but I captured it, so we'll see. You can check those out there as well. Thanks again so much for joining us. Join us next episode where we will be talking about the game Ratatouille, which I believe was for the 360.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Actually, I think this is the game that's like on a bajillion different consoles.
Oh boy.
So should be great.
Yeah.
I
Oh boy.
don't think I've ever played it, but
I have once
okay.
at Epcot, I think. Maybe not.
At Epcot. Nice.
Don't quote me.
All right, guys. Well, have a great day, and we will see you next time.
And long live the villains.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, check out some of our other videos, and visit thenintendovillage.com, your home for everything Nintendo.